All right, so today we're going to talk about circles. Desmos is going to be your BFF today, so you're definitely going to need Desmos. And we are going to be using this little pi symbol. That's why you need Desmos. If you don't use the pi symbol, we're going to be in some trouble today on your assignment because there's a lot of rounding, and I used pi, and I didn't use like 3.14. I used the pi symbol, so that's where Desmos, you need that pi symbol. So there's two formulas that we're going to talk about today. The reason why we don't cover circumference or we don't cover perimeter with circles is because you technically don't have the perimeter of a circle, because when we said the definition of perimeter that we gave was add all lengths on the outside. Well, a circle technically doesn't have any sides, so we have to use this thing called a circumference. So what the circumference does is it measures the length around a circle. So circumference is kind of like the perimeter of a circle. So it's around the outside. So there's two different formulas that you can use for circumference. The first one uses actually we got to talk about this first. I just remembered. So with a circle, there are two things that you are going to be dealing with. There is something called the radius, which goes halfway across the circle. And then there's also something called the diameter. So the diameter goes all the way from one end to the other. The radius is half of the diameter, or you can think of it as the diameter is two radiuses, radii. So that's why we can have two formulas for circumference. So the circumference formula that I personally use is I figure out what's the diameter, and then you multiply by pi. Diameter times pi. So if they give me the radius, I just double it. So if they give you the radius, you do two radiuses and then multiply by pi. So those are the two formulas that you can use for circumference, and we're going to be working with them here in a second. For area only uses the radius. So if they give you the diameter, you're going to have to cut it in half to figure out what the radius is. So for the area of a circle, you take the radius and square it and then multiply by that pi symbol. So you need the pi symbol no matter what. So please, 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 I cannot stress enough, make sure that you have your Desmos available. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. So example 3, they want us to find the circumference. It says in terms of pi, we are not doing that this year. We are just going to be finding the circumference, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth, which is 1 decimal place. In this picture, they draw the line all the way across. That is the diameter. So the diameter is 12. So to find the circumference, you take 12 and you multiply by pi. So in Desmos, I take 12 times pi, and I get 37.69911, so on and so forth. But to 1 decimal place, this would be 37.7, and leave it alone. But notice I use the pi symbol. I cannot stress enough. You have to use the pi symbol. For this check understanding here, find the circumference with a radius of 18. So now your radius is 18. So they give you the radius, so we're going to use this formula. So the circumference is 2 times the radius times pi. So I take, let's exit out of there, 2 times 18 times pi. And I get 113.09, so round up, and I get 113.1. So that's how you find the circumference. Now the area, like I said, for area, no matter what, you have to know what the radius is. So if they give you the diameter, like they do here, you have to figure out what the radius is. So for example 4, the area formula is take your radius and square it and multiply by pi. So they tell you in the directions, and this is where you have to pay attention to the directions, that the diameter is 20. Well, the diameter is all the way across a circle. We only want to know what half that length would be, so half of 20 is 10. So my area formula is going to be 10 squared times pi. So let's see, we take 10 squared pi. And I get 314.2. And that's it. A lot of this is just plugging and chugging into the calculator, so it's just kind of nice. It's a nice little breakup here of things. And then the last one, it says in the directions, the radius is 5 feet. Find the area. We're just going to find the area. So if the radius is 5, we do radius squared times pi. So we take 5 squared times pi, and we get 78.5. So main thing, just make sure that you are plugging in correctly, and pay attention to whether you're given the radius, read the directions, radius or diameter. But I think you guys are going to do really well with this. Tomorrow we start doing these things called composite figures. And as you can see, we're going to be using multiple figures. So we got to make sure you have these down before we move on to the next ones. Good luck.